quick question, do you know how to keep going when faced by troubles and difficult seasons that just don't make any sense? Now let me set the scene a little. So you've encountered Jesus and your life is no longer the same. Everybody around who's known you since before can see how much you've changed. Then the initial period of bliss suddenly comes to a halt. And now the weight of God's work in your life actually starts to cost you. And so you face rejection, even by some of the most religious people who you hoped would be on your side. Because really, they should know better. And these are the spiritual people, so surely they should get it. And you not only face rejection from those so-called spiritual ones, but you even face persecution. They actively turn against you like you've morphed into Satan himself. You've done them no evil, but they still wish and do the worst against you. Is that something you've been through or seen before? And so now we introduce Lazarus, a man who we learn from John chapter 11 was minding his own business and dead in a tomb. Then by no doing or initiation of his own, the power of God through Jesus brought a dead man back to life. And I'm also tempted to just sit on that and talk about the parallels with the gospel message and how that was us who were spiritually dead, but we'll save that for another video. So back to Lazarus. Now what many of us know and often focus on with Lazarus is that before his resurrection, he was dead and in a tomb for 4 days. And what we see through the scriptures is how Jesus willingly put his own life at risk by going back to the same place and amongst the same people who'd already made an attempt on his life before, all because of the love that he had for his friend. And so despite the potential risk to himself, he preferred his friend and entered that so-called danger zone in order to go back and give his friend the help he needed. So fast forward a little bit. Jesus did the impossible and raised the dead man back to life. And so the people were no doubt amazed. What kind of transforming work is this? What kind of person brings dead people back to life? We saw Lazarus enter the tomb. We saw the stone that was blocking his tomb for 4 days, and we smelt the stench that was coming out of his tomb, confirming that he was a dead man. And yet out of nowhere, this dude shows up and calls him forth and brings him back to life. And fast forward a little more, and we see a group of people who weren't too happy with what Jesus had done with Lazarus. And so they found out where Jesus was. And John chapter 12 tells us that they, the unhappy group of people, came not only because of Jesus, but also to see Lazarus, the one he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests had decided to kill Lazarus also, because he was the reason many of the Jews were deserting them and believing in Jesus. Now, what can we learn from these verses? Well, sometimes the persecution, difficulty, and oppositions that we face has nothing to do with us and is more about our association with Christ. You see, Lazarus had no say in the miracle work of Christ in his life. He didn't ask to be resurrected. He didn't ask to be changed from a dead man to a living man. But because of the transforming and life-giving work of Christ in him, he now found his own life under threat. And here's the application. Sometimes we find ourselves in the most pressing situations, facing times of trouble and difficulty on the left and on the right, and we can't make much sense of it. What did I do? Where is all of this coming from? I tried to do the right thing by following Christ and following the kingdom way, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm wrestling with all of this opposition. Remember, my bro, my sis, Jesus taught us that we would have troubles in this world. He warned us that we would be hated by everyone because of his name. But this isn't just a flesh and blood thing at all. There's a spiritual battle that's going on beyond the naked eye. And sometimes, the enemy's camp will influence even the most seemingly religious in order to try and achieve Satan's agenda. And on that point, another thing we see about Lazarus here is that his life wasn't under threat by the Romans, and it wasn't the pagans and the non-religious who were opposing him. It was the religious people, the chief priests. So what does that say to us? Well, maybe it's a reminder to adjust our expectations, because sometimes it's those with the biggest religious reputations who can miss it the most. Those who are known to study, teach, and be masters of the scriptures. Those who maybe pray the loudest, the ones who are the first to the religious meetings, and the ones who are the go-to people for so many in the faith. Those people can get it very wrong too. Why? Because when any of us, religious leaders or not, stop focusing on seeing things through God's way rather than our own perceptions, wisdom, and assumptions, we leave ourselves wide open to Satan. And we give him a chance to step in just like he did in Eden, when God's children trusted themselves and their own perceptions rather than pursuing and seeing things according to God's instruction. So what's the takeaway message? As 1 Peter 4 teaches us, don't be surprised when you're faced by those fiery trials as though something strange happened. There are some challenges, troubles, and persecutions we face that make no sense on a natural level. But the bigger picture is, they're simply part of what comes with choosing to follow Christ. And it might not look the same in the person to the left or to the right, but it's something that we all must have an understanding of and not allow us to be taken out. And furthermore, Adjust your expectations. Know that even the most respected religious leaders and influencers can actually get it wrong. So do give respect where it's due, but don't make the mistake of putting the confidence that only belongs to God in man. And so do you know how to keep going when you're faced by troubles and challenging seasons that just don't make any sense? Peace.